We have several more huge NHL signings to discuss today on an incredibly busy, record-setting day in NHL free agency. We'll get you all caught up with more of the signings coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot more signings to discuss. We had a record-setting first opening day of NHL free agency here in 2022. In case you're not completely caught up, there is several videos on the channel yesterday. Kind of a quick recap of what happened. I posted 8 videos starting from the morning into the mid to late afternoon, getting on top of all of the news. Of course, we had some signings that happened late through the night, like Evgeny Malkin staying in Pittsburgh and Evander Kane in Edmonton. And then from there, we had lots that were kind of preparing, that we kind of thought we knew where they were going. And then we're on supper time. Of course, I had to take a bit of a break from the videos for a few hours because I had an event to attend to. And then I came home to no power. We had an unexpected power outage. So, and it lasted till the wee. I waited up all night trying to get videos made until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was still out. So I finally had to succumb and just crash and get a little bit of sleep. And then I thankfully woke up to it being back on here early this morning. And now we're back in business, getting everybody caught up on the news. It's been dying to talk about some of this stuff, and it's been driving me nuts. But here we go. So the breaks, right? I can't control a lot of things that you can't control. It's just unfortunate. But there's several videos on the channel with some of the bigger signings on their own. Like there's dedicated videos for Johnny Gaudreau, like Darcy Kemper, Jack Campbell. Some of the bigger names, some of the trades we saw, like Max Pacioretty, Connor Brown, the trade between the Devils and Bruins, that kind of stuff. So that's all there if you need to get caught up. And now we're getting this is kind of like part 2 of the signings, if you will, because outside of all the really big names, there is a video on the channel yesterday recapping a bunch of the early signings, and this is a lot of the stuff that came later in the day. Now, into the business here, we get the Red Wings had a phenomenal day. I thought Steve Yzerman was just keeping up with Pierre Dorion with all the moves he's made lately. We're going to see this Atlantic Division be incredibly more competitive this year. Like we saw the top end teams dominate the league this past year with Toronto, Tampa, and Florida. And you got to wonder, they're all still going to be really good teams. I don't know that they're going to be better though. Now we've seen Ottawa and Detroit take some major steps forward. You got to wonder about the Bruins. I think they're still going to be in the mix for sure. Bergeron and Krejci room to come back. Like it's going to be an incredibly tight division. But Detroit has signed David Perron to a 2-year contract at $4.75 million. Of course, he couldn't stay in St. Louis, couldn't come to terms because they ran out of salary cap space. They signed Nick Leddy, and they extended Robert Thomas, but They couldn't move, or either couldn't or wouldn't move Vladimir Tarasenko, who I believe is going to be a goner in free agency next year for whatever reason. But Perron, to me, has been such a huge part of that Blues team, like a heart and soul guy. I'm sure Ryan O'Reilly is not thrilled about this because they were line mates a lot and good friends and had a lot of great chemistry and were a big part of that team. But Yzerman gets a really good deal here. 2 years at $4.75. He also brings in Dominik Kubalik, who was not qualified in Chicago. 2 years at $2.5 million. A former 30-goal scorer. Now, mind you, that was only a one-time deal. But still, I think Dominik Kubalik could easily be rehabilitated, so to speak, and be a great addition there. Brings in Ben Chiarot, the former Habs defenseman who was traded to Florida at the deadline on a 4-year deal at $4.75. They let Mark Stahl walk, so that's a huge upgrade. I think Chiarot will be really good for the younger D on that D-core. Like Seider, for example, they got Simon Edvinsson coming, who could make the lineup this year as well. If their blue line is definitely better. They signed Mark Pysyk as well out of Buffalo, 1 year at $850. And that might be one of the sneakier, more good value deals. Like, he's probably only going to be, a 6'7" guy, probably like a third pair. But that's good value. And Pysyk's not a guy that gets a lot of recognition, but he's a good, serviceable defenseman. They also brought in Matt Luff and Austin Zarnik on 2-way deals. So some good vets there so to have available for call-ups. Like, I really think Detroit had a phenomenal day. Like, a lot of these deals on their own might be like, you're not going to jump off the page when you're reading the news, but they're good, solid deals. And you surround that with all the other good young talent that have already assembled in Detroit. And honestly, they've had a really, really good day. One of the late signings that came in late last night, Ondrej Palat is leaving Tampa and has signed with the Devils on a 5-year contract worth $6 million per season, so it's $30 million total. Of course, Ondrej Palat has a knack for scoring huge goals, was a big part of Tampa's playoff runs the past 3 seasons. Doesn't get a lot of recognition in the regular season. He's steady. Like, he's one of those guys, you know what you're getting. You can count on him. He can play in all situations. I know John Cooper absolutely loved this guy and can trust him out there in any spot. It's a big loss for Tampa. Ultimately, I think Tampa will still be a really good team. But ultimately, he was able to get more money, more term. I'm not sure if term was the issue. Staying in Tampa is probably money because of the tighter salary cap space. I think they had to try to keep things closer to like $3.5 to $4 million, and there's just no way Palat was signing for that kind of money, as much as I'm sure he loved it there. So Ondrej Palat is a Devil. We know the Devils were in on Gaudreau, but did not get the job done. Palat, though, as much as he's not Johnny Gaudreau, he's got a lot more playoff success, so if they can get themselves improved enough to make it to the playoffs, he will be a huge asset. He knows what it takes to win. He's got multiple Stanley Cups, and he will be a great influence on those young kids like Hughes and Hischier especially. So to me, I don't think New Jersey's done here. I think we're going to probably still see some other attempts at improving this team. We haven't really seen as much out of New Jersey as I thought we would, but this is a really good start to their offseason. Now, of course, like I said, in Columbus, they obviously got the big prize here. Johnny Gaudreau shocked everybody. He went to Columbus after leaving money on the table with the Flames and as well as the Islanders and Devils. But the Jackets also signed Erik Gudbranson, 4 years and $4 million. And I'm sorry, but that is a huge mistake. Erik Gudbranson had a good year in Calgary last year, and I know that the Flames kind of helped breathe life into his career again. That pairing with him and Zadorov had a slow start, but then they really found their groove. And you know what? He definitely had a good season. I can understand why teams would be looking at that and say, geez, you know what? He can play again. He's got great size. He's always been a big physical guy, not afraid to fight. But I've seen some really bad games from Erik Gudbranson in the past. Like, I know some of us have even joked, and there's Erik Gudbranson and there's Erik Badbranson. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was horrendous in Ottawa. Back when he was a Canuck, he's been a Penguin. Like, he's had his moments where he's had value, but then he's had a lot of times where he hasn't. So to me, that much money, that much term is risque, to say the least. So Columbus has a good young blue line, and I just don't know. I mean, he'll definitely add that physical component and the muscle back there, the size. I get it. I understand why they wanted a Gudbranson type, but I just think they overcommitted here. But that's my take on that one. Pittsburgh has brought in a few players, nothing too crazy. Of course, they did a lot of internal things to keep the band together. Obviously, signing Letang and Malkin. They kept Rickard Rakell. Obviously, extended Jeff Carter before the season was out. But then, of course, they signed Jan Ruda, who's a sneaky good defenseman out of Tampa. A 3-year deal at $275. I know the Lightning were interested in keeping him too, but just couldn't make it work. So it's a couple of strikes against Tampa, losing some key guys. Pittsburgh also brings in a depth piece in Josh Archibald, 1 year, $900,000 as well. But Pittsburgh, you're going to see more activity out of them now. There's no way they can't move a defenseman. They have like 8 NHL contracted defensemen now. You're bound to see whether it be Marcus Pettersson, John Marino, Brian Dumoulin, any or maybe 1 or 2 of those guys get moved. A lot of talk around all 3 of them in various capacities. So we'll see. I know Vancouver's a team to watch. Ottawa's a team to watch. Maybe Anaheim. There's definitely other teams out there that have had conversations reportedly around some of these guys, so we'll see where they go. Carolina had a real good day as well. They signed Ondrej Kase, 1 year, $1.5 million. Not a lot of money, but if he can stay healthy, again, he had a good year in Toronto. It's not that Toronto didn't want to keep him, didn't like him. It just his qualifying offer based on the previous contract, they couldn't justify quite that much. They wanted him to stay and take less, but they ended up pivoting and going other ways here. And Kase goes to Carolina. Of course, they picked up Max Pacioretty and Dylan Coughlin from Vegas for future consideration. So nothing. There's a video on the channel about that where I really gave Vegas a hard time for their asset management. That was insane. They need to get their act together, so to speak. Steal a quote from Jerry Jones. Holy jumpins. Carolina added a couple of good offensive players, at least, with Kase and Pacioretty. We don't know the status of Nino Niederreiter yet. He's still out there in the market. They are rumored to be involved in some other deals. Of course, they traded for Brent Burns, too. I don't know if we're going to see a lot more out of Carolina. Probably not. After bringing in Burns, of course, with salary retained, and Pacioretty, that's a lot of money. So I imagine Carolina won't be doing too much else, or at least if it is, it's just kind of maybe some depth move. The Lightning, of course, like I said, they lost Ruda, they lost Palat, but they brought in some decent replacements here. They signed defenseman Ian Cole, who leaves Carolina. He gets a 1-year deal at $3 million. So, of course, that's another guy with a lot of experience, valuable playoff experience, Stanley Cups. I know he ran into a little bit of a situation in Carolina that made some news here recently as well, which we won't really get into, but I'm sure he was anxious to probably get out of there. So that's a good addition to Tampa. They bring back Vlad Nemestikov. Nemestikov, of course, was probably played his best hockey in Tampa. They kind of boosted his numbers, really. To me, Nemestikov was a player who was a complementary piece, kind of like Palat, who could play with guys like Stamkos and Kucherov and rack up the assist and really, pump his stats up, and then they sold him off for good value. Like it's like what I call a pump and dump. That's what you saw a few years back. And he's kind of bounced around ever since, and he's never really completely found another spot like that. So, hey, if they're going to take him back, that's probably the greatest thing for his career. He knows those players, knows the coaching staff. That's a good spot, and it's a player that should just seamlessly fit right in. Not necessarily going to give you the same value as Palat, but it's a lot cheaper. And like I said, it's for one of a tight cap situation. It's a good replacement. They also bring in young defenseman Hayden Fleury, who I'm surprised never got more of a role in Seattle, considering where things were at with them. He gets a 2-year deal at $762. So Hayden Fleury still, after all this time, trying to get his career on a solid track here, and he'll have opportunity in Tampa. That tells me as well that Tampa doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in Cal Foote. They could have easily, after losing Ruda, given Foote more opportunity, and instead they bring in Cole and Fleury. So I wonder if we could see a Cal Foote move. That wouldn't be shocking. The Edmonton Oilers bring back Brett Kulak on a 4-year deal, $275 per season. Of course, that's a good deal as well. He played well with Tyson Barrie, good third pair player. That's somebody who they paid assets for to give up at the deadline, and now they bring him back. So that's a real good deal there. The Anaheim Ducks were busy. They signed Ryan Strome and Frank Vatrano, both formerly of the New York Rangers. Strome gets a 5-year deal at $5 million per season. So 5 times 5, which is essentially what was kind of rumored for him for some time. Vatrano gets 3 years at $275. I don't know, to be honest, though, that I like these deals for Anaheim. Now, Anaheim, they've got some good young centers in Trevor Zegras and Mason McTavish. They still have Adam Henrique, and now they're bringing Ryan Strome. I mean, I know Henrique can play the wing. Maybe McTavish plays the wing for a little bit. I mean, it's not a completely horrible deal. I just don't know if that's really the best way for them to spend some money. But and we'll see if Strome and Vatrano can, bring what they did in New York. The other big thing on Ryan Strome, as we all know, is we're going to find out soon enough just how good a hockey player he is. Or was he riding Artemi Panarin's coattails for the last number of years with the Rangers? Because he obviously was a good player when he played with the Islanders, the Oilers, but it wasn't until he ended up at the Rangers that you really saw more consistency and bigger point totals, and time will tell. I don't. To me, that's a risky signing. I will get into a video later talking about the winners and losers. As much as they're not terrible contracts, I just don't know if it was the money best spent by the Ducks. The Flames bring back Nikita Zadorov, 2 years at $375. Of course, they lost his partner Gabranson that we just talked about, but Calgary was relatively quiet after losing Johnny. They got some hard decisions to make now. Vegas, of course, traded Pacioretty, but they're bringing back Riley Smith, 3 years at $5 million per year. I don't agree with that either. You give up a 35 goal scorer so you can bring back Smith. Smith is a good player, an original, one of the few guys that actually seems to get some loyalty there, which is surprising based on how they treat the players in Vegas, which I'm not fond of. But I don't know. To me, I'm not sure that was a good move. Brendan Lemieux, after not being qualified, re-signs in LA for less money than his qualifying offer was due. 1 year, $1.35 million. The Kraken bring in Martin Jones, 1 year, $2 million. Chris Driedger, of course, who signed a 3-year contract around the time of expansion, was the pick from the Florida Panthers last year. Ended up injuring. He got some severe knee injuries and is out for the entire year. So they needed a short-term goalie solution. So Jones will solve that. The Dallas Stars had a decent day. We'll see. They signed Colin Miller, 2 years at $185. They're obviously likely not bringing back Klingberg. Colin Miller's not Klingberg, but he is an offensive defenseman with a good shot. A lot cheaper. That tells me that Dallas, who was in the mix for Brent Burns as well, probably won't pivot towards Jeff Petrie now. That was something that we thought we might see. And I wouldn't completely rule it out, but it doesn't look like it at this point. They also bring in Mason Marchment on a 4-year deal at $4.5 million, who leaves the Florida Panthers. The Panthers had a tough day as well, losing several players, not only Marchment, but Giroux, Sherratt. It's a tough day for Florida for sure. Now Marchment, again, another guy who found his career in Florida. Can he take that with him? You know what I mean? Like sometimes you see players and they just seem to find a groove with certain players, certain teams, and they just can't keep it going when they leave. That's going to be a real test for him. And of course, he just lost his dad, Brian, who passed away after traveling to Montreal for the draft, working for the San Jose Sharks. Real tough couple of weeks here for Marchment. So, certainly congrats on the contract. And I hope that he has continued success in Dallas. It's just going to be interesting to see how it plays out. The Philadelphia Flyers bring in Nick Delorier. Certainly some muscle, some toughness. 4-year deal at $175. That's coming at a premium now. And of course, they signed Justin Braun 1 year, $175. Of course, the Flyers could not create space. They could not move JVR. The price was way too high. The Flyers are kind of handcuffed here, and this aggressive retool is off to a really poor start. I like Delorier. Good fit there, not surprising, but they have so much more work to do. Of course, the Florida Panthers, as I mentioned, lost several players, but they did bring in an aging Mark Stahl on a 1-year deal at $750. That's a phenomenal deal. I'm just kidding, of course. I like Mark Stahl, but that's not going to move the needle after what you lost. But hey, it's a spot there. And the San Jose Sharks are giving Oscar Lindblom a new chance after getting bought out by the Flyers. 2 years at $2.5 million per season. That should be easy for him to earn, and certainly look good out there in San Jose. He'll be given more opportunity for sure. So that's all the signings as of right now. Of course, this video will be an hour or two getting to YouTube. So certainly stay tuned. There's going to be more videos today. I hope that there's no more power outages. I hope that I can actually stay here and just make videos all day as the news breaks, which is my full intent. So subscribe if you're new. We'll keep you up to date. It's going to be a crazy off season, and I will catch you next time.